the time is exactly 9 o'clock. And can we start?
Yes, Chairperson, we can start.
Good morning, honorable members, support staff, members of the public, members of the media, everybody who's on the platform. You are most welcome. Today, the committee, it's meeting with the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs to look at many issues around budget, spending, and related matters. So let me take this opportunity to welcome the department, Darren, who's leading the delegation. I saw Deputy Minister Obed Babela. DM, I think it's you who's leading the delegation, am I correct? DM, Babela. Darren, am I correct? The Deputy Minister is on the platform.
Yes, Chairperson, the Deputy Minister is on, but for some reason we cannot hear. But his mic is not on mute, so I don't know what's happening.
Okay, please, and the DG and the whole delegation of the department, you are most welcome. As we are trying to get the Deputy Minister, because he had told me that he'll be leading the delegation. Darren, can we go to the agenda? Do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chairperson, we received an apology from Ms. Dikhale. She's attending the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence.
Okay, can you please note that? Can you please note that apology? Then we will. Can I request everybody else to mute? Yes, that's one of the housekeeping rules. Let everybody mute. You only open your gadget when you are on the platform. Thank you very much. So as you can see, we'll allow the department about 45 minutes maximum to make their input, responding on the requests that the committee made to them, issues that want them to address, and any other issue which they think is important for our attention. And then after that, the members of the committee will deliberate, raise issues, raise questions, make comments, and then allow the department again to respond to those comments. And then we'll look at the minutes and then announcements, if any, and then we'll adjourn. So with those few words, let me check. Cooperative, the platform is yours. DM, DG, and the team. You'll decide who's presenting what. You'll only bring the meeting back to us after 45 minutes, which will be latest 10 to 10. DM and your team. DG, come in.
Chairperson, I've just allowed the Deputy Minister back into the meeting. I think he's experiencing connectivity challenges. I don't know if it's going to work now.
DM, are you winning?
I'm trying with another gadget. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
We can hear me now. Okay.
Okay. But I was just checking. Did you hear me in my introduction? If I just quickly.
Yes, I heard you, and then also the apologies I got, but I was struggling to be heard that side. So, okay,
so
thank you very much.
You are leading the delegation from Cooperative.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, welcome, DM, with your team. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and members of SCOA and the Cooperative officials led by the DG, Ms. Avery Williamson, and the colleagues that are here. Honorable Chairperson and members, thank you for affording us an opportunity to come and brief the committee on the department's budget underspending over the past 5 financial years and implications on service delivery as a mandate function of the department. Honorable Chairperson, I wish to start by highlighting that the department indeed experienced underspending on both our internal and external areas. Internal area covers compensation of employees and goods and services, and an external area covers our various grants. Honorable Chairperson and members, the department had an average annual vacancy rate of 10.3% in the period under review, which resulted in underspending on compensation of employees. So that's the first underspending as a result of this particular vacancy rate. Then the second area is goods and services underspending, primarily due to budgets not allocated to priorities, poor procurement planning, and analysis in finalizing procurement processes. So those are some of the reasons that had led to this, but they will be further explained by the team here. In terms of non-financial performance, the department performance declined over the 2019-2020 financial year from 83% to 62%. And as you know, that it was the period of the COVID lockdowns. However, we managed to turn performance towards an upward trajectory, achieving 73% of its target, having declined from 62. Now we went up to 73 of its targets over the 2021-2022 financial year. Mr. Pretoria, as the DDG Corporate Services and the acting CFO, will elaborate further on measures in place to address the above challenges that I've alluded to. External areas of our underspending are related to our grants, such as the Municipal Systems Improvement Grant, and then the Local Government Equitable Share, and then the Integrated Urban Development Grant, and also on the disaster grants. In respect of the technical assistance provided through the Municipal System Improvement Grants, the MSIG, the department has identified key areas to assist multiples to address issues resulting in adverse audit outcomes, especially through technical assistance on both data and records management. And when they present the full, we will then be able to follow the narrative and the explanations. While there has been challenges in respect of timers procurement of technical assistance to municipalities, the department has also instituted mechanisms to ensure timers procurement of services to assist municipalities. Regarding the local government equitable share, we understand that offsetting occurs when municipalities are not able to return and spend conditional grants funds due to those funds used to other purposes. And as you know the story in the municipalities, when they don't have money themselves, then they will then go to the grants and use the grants to use it for operational matters. And there's this offsetting that will from time to time to occur. Addressing municipal revenue and operational cash flow challenges will address conditional grants being utilized for the unintended purposes and ensure that funds are not being offset against the equitable share. So we are working on a model that reduces this occurrence. With regard to the municipal infrastructure grant, the challenge is clearly with regard to the delays in councils approving projects, inadequate capacity in projects management. It's a big issue generally across the country, as well, particularly in the public sector, as well as repairs and maintenance of infrastructure. And I think all of you stay or live in a municipality, you work and visit now and then there. You can see the state of the infrastructure across majority of the municipalities. Then you could then begin to see the grants. The problem is not money. The problem is the challenges of the capacity and the project management to ensure that projects that are started are able to be completed. The The gains from infrastructure expenditure will be on an improved asset management planning and on a concerted effort to increase expenditure on repairs and maintenance funded from the conditional grants. We are working on a module 3 also to address this so that this occurrence of underspending can then be reduced. Disaster response grants, which is the last point, are unallocated allocations in terms of the divisions of Revenue Act. Therefore, are only released in the event of classified disaster as a top-up fund when organs of state are unable to deal with the effects of the disaster and grant conditions as they hit them. When approval is granted for funds to be allocated for disaster response, it is transferred to the requesting municipality or province sector department, who is then required to spend it within 6 months towards the intended projects to provide relief to the affected communities. If these allocated funds are not utilized by organs of state, it will be surrendered to the national fiscus unless the organs of state are able to secure rollover approval from the national treasury. So this activity will then happen at that sector department's level. From the 1st April 2017 until 31st March 2022, a total of 2.8 billion plus has been allocated to municipalities and provincial organs of state, of which 16.3 billion allocated to KZN allocation was surrendered to the national fiscal during the 2017-2018 financial year. This represents 0.58% of the allocations over the period of 5 years. One of the key challenges is following up on this round through effective monitoring of implementation projects to ensure quality of services and that funds are used for intended purposes. This is exacerbated by lack of oversight and intervention by accounting officers within the funded grant recipient organs of the state. Furthermore, it should be noted that organs of state are compelled to report on spending of grants in terms of the DORA and Section 24 of the Disaster Management Act 57 of 2002. Relevant senior management responsible for management of grants will present to members in details reasons and challenges for underspending in grants measures in place to address this. And we are not just giving reasons why the under expenditure is happening, but we'll also be indicating improvements, but also indicating solutions going forward so that we're able to, but some of them obviously, they are external, and then there it depends on collaboration and cooperation with the departments in the provinces as recipients and as the municipality themselves, majority of which do not have necessary capacities to spend. Chair, let me stop there and allow the officials to then come in. I'm not sure, led by the DDG Pretorius, unless the DG wants to introduce the team, and then thereafter the DDG will take over. Through your permission, Chairperson, let me stop there. Thank you.
Please proceed, DG and the team. Thank you, DM.
Morning, Chairperson, and morning to all the members. With your permission, Chair, I will hand over to the DDG, Peter Pretorius, as I also have to leave the meeting earlier. Thanks.
Thank you, DG. Good morning, Chair and honourable members. My name is Peter Pretorius, DG for Corporate Services and Acting CFO. May I please request the Secretariat to allow me to present? I'm unable to share my screen.
Yes, Mr. Pretorius, can you have your video on? The people of South Africa want to see who they are talking to.
My apologies. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I see I can present now. As the DM indicated, Chairperson and honourable members, that we are going to address the issues highlighted in the letter that was sent to us, and we are then also separating our reports on under expenditure between our internal departmental expenditure, where the root causes of the underspending would be mostly internal, and then the different grants where there has been under expenditure, where the root causes would then be a mix between internal and external. And then we will also look at our oversight role in supporting municipalities, challenges, failures, and successes of the department, and concluding remarks. I'm going to skip this slide, as this is just a repeat of what we were requested to present on. We're going to start with the expenditure of the department internally, which then talks to our own budget for compensation of employees, goods and services, capital assets, transfers, and financial assets. And I think as we can clearly see that there has been, there was initially a trend of a decrease in under expenditure up to 2019-20. And 2021, there was a significant dip with only 77.3% of the budget spent, and that's then increased in 21-22. The 2020-21 could be primarily attributed to COVID. And then if we look at the reasons why on compensation of employees, the department has had a vacancy rate, as the DM indicated, of around 10.3% in the period under review, which contributes then to the underspending on compensation of employees, but also then on the department's underspending. This could be attributed primarily to slow recruitment processes and an organizational structure that was not aligned to the department's legal mandate. On goods and services, we found that it was primarily due to budgets not allocated to priorities and poor procurement planning and delays in finalizing procurement processes. On the CWP, there was also quite a bit of underspending in the previous financial years, again due to inefficient budget allocations. We have since used the surplus funds to increase the stipends of participants and also to increase the target number of participants, which will address the underspending. So in order to address the underspending, at the end of the previous financial year, we finalized our comprehensive strategic review process. This resulted in a revised operating model and organizational structure of the department. And we then also subsequently adopted a zero-based budgeting approach for the next MTF period to ensure that our funding is allocated to priorities and to areas that are actually able to spend the money and to translate that into services provided by the department. So the revised budget allocations prioritized was aimed at capacitating the department's support and monitoring capability at local level. So the most significant change in our organizational structure was then to allocate more resources to our ability to actually support municipalities and engage municipalities and provinces. And the capacity in this area increased from around 10 employees to 80 employees. So the revised organizational structure then allocated resources to priority areas to ensure that we are able to fully implement our mandate. At present, all vacant posts have been advertised and are in the process of being filled. This will address underspending on compensation going forward. On goods and services, there are primarily three areas we focused on. Is that our procurement plans are completed before the start of a financial year, and that the procurement also starts before a financial year starts, so that the contracts can be awarded at the beginning of a financial year to ensure that the funds are spent. We've also reviewed SCM policies and processes to increase the turnaround time on procurement, and we trust that these interventions will then address underspending on goods and services. We then also briefly touch on the non-financial performance of the department. And we can see that our non-financial performance mostly tracked what we could see in the financial performance, that there was an initial increase in both our achievement of APP targets as well as expenditure, but then there was a dip in both. We are now on track again. And we achieved 73% of our APP targets last year. In the current financial year, in our first quarter, we exceeded 80%. So we are confident that the interventions we put in place will then make sure that we both improve our performance in terms of achieving APP targets and our financial performance. Some of the key challenges that we experience is that provinces and municipalities are not always playing their part. In other words, that we are dependent on whether provinces and municipalities spend grants, although that relates primarily to our external grants that we are responsible for. Then also the limited powers of the minister to enforce compliance on municipalities. The organizational design and operating model challenges that impacted on both performance and on spending has now been resolved, and we trust that going forward this would address underspending. So that covers the internal expenditure of the department, and we're now going to go through the different grants where there has actually been under expenditure. The first one being, and that's the biggest transfer that the department makes, is the local government equitable share. And as we can clearly see in the right-hand column, that there's been significant underspending. And then the reasons provided for this is primarily twofold. Because transfers are offset against previous year's unspent conditional grants in terms of Section 21 of DORA, which provides that if a conditional grant is not spent and the money is not returned to Treasury, it would then be offset against the equitable share, which impacts on the total expenditure or the total amount that the department transfers. We are currently, there's a need to address this underspending of conditional grants impacting on a local government equitable share. And we are currently engaging National Treasury on a way forward in this, so that this does not in future, hopefully then impact on the LGES. And then the other area that results in the underspending is where the transfers are stopped. It's normally where the receiving entities commits a serious or persistent breach of the measures prescribed to promote transparency, accountability, and effective financial management. And this is also then in line with DORA. So again, the department does not have direct control to decide whether or not we want to implement this. It's prescribed in the Division of Revenue Act. Municipal Systems Improvement Grant. This is a significant area of underspending, although it may not be in rands as significant as some of the others, but certainly in percentages. This is mainly due to a lack of appropriate identification of support areas for the program. So this is an internal root cause and delays then in procurement of the required services. So this is an area where the department then needs to look at its internal processes to improve spending on the grant. The department will adopt a forward planning approach in future on the funded projects to ensure that seamless implementation of technical support to municipalities. It should also be noted that the current funded MSIG funded projects are listed there. It's piloting and validation of prototype staff establishment for municipalities according to the different powers and functions of different categories of municipalities, improvement of data management, improvement of records management, cost of supply and water provision. And these are all multi-year projects, and the project started late, but now that they are in process will improve spending on MSIG. And then there are also some envisaged projects that we intend to implement in the near future, and that is then the rollout of the prototype staff establishment, and then the data management that was the data management support is to also roll that out, and then the improvement of records management and cost of supply of water. Currently, there are, if we go back in the financial years, Chair, I think in the interest of time, I'm not going to spend too much time on the previous financial years to allow us to finish on time as indicated. I think we should focus then on the areas that where we're going to focus on in future. And as we've already indicated, there's a lot of work that has happened, and where we have provided support to municipalities through the MSIG, and that if we then implement the measures that we've indicated earlier, our sense is then that we will improve expenditure in this area, and we will then also improve the impact of the MSIG on our primary clients, in this case being municipalities. On the municipal infrastructure grant, the statistics we provide here is the actual expenditure by recipient municipalities of the grant. So the department then each year transfers 100% of the grant. So in our books, the expenditure appears to be 100%. But we thought it's important that we focus on what then actually happens to the money. So even though it doesn't reflect as under expenditure of the department, the grants are not always spent. Again, we could see that in 17, 18, 18, 19, it was around 91% of the grants that were spent by municipalities. This dipped to just under 80% in 1920, primarily again due to COVID, and then it improved again in 2021, and then is slightly less again in 21-22. The areas that the MSIG is primarily impacted on, as you can see, it's mostly water related, water and sanitation related, followed by roads. We should also note that the information for 21-22 is still being finalized, as obviously the local government financial year is not the same as ours. And in the 21-22 MIC annual report development process is still ongoing. When we look at the challenges related to MIC, the first challenge we identified is that the funds are not being used for the intended purpose. So municipalities in financial distress would utilize MIC funds to cover operational expenditure. The progress in addressing the challenge, implementing of cost reimbursement in 18 municipalities that requires that MIC funding is only released to municipalities if invoices have been technically verified as completed by a verification team. This is primarily done by the Department of Cooperative Governance and MISA, and then also with support from provinces. Then the poor MIC value chain execution, resulting in the lack of pipeline of MIC projects. MISA is, as part of their role in the MIC framework, is assisting municipalities with the technical reports, reviews and business case development to advance a proper pipeline for MIC capital projects. And MISA engineers are part of the sector appraisal committees of projects to be included in the MIC implementation plans. Low economic development impact, and the progress we've made in addressing this is we continue to deliberate in the conditional grants review process facilitated by National Treasury to allow grants such as MIC to fund enabling municipality infrastructure to promote economic development. Engagement currently underway with Department of Water and Sanitation that administers WSIG and RBIC, aimed at integrating of infrastructure grants, planning, budgeting, and implementation alliance. Further challenge is the failure of municipal infrastructure, largely due to poor budgeting and expenditure on capital grants. DCOC in future will retain allocations, in other words, implement 6B of MIC for poor performing municipalities and implement on behalf of municipalities on priority infrastructure projects, in particular repairs, refurbishment of water services and waste management infrastructure. Outsourcing of technical skills. MISA has developed a design office, currently piloted in our Tambo District municipality, that will in future serve as consultant services where technical designs of municipalities are undertaken, and this will build capacity, cost of services, and reduce reliance on consultants. And then leakages due to inflation pricing. A public infrastructure unit cost guideline was developed in collaboration between MISA and UCT, and this has been reviewed and updated for municipalities to benchmark the cost of services and extend their infrastructure investment opportunities. Then there are also some opportunities to address the challenges. Delayed procurement processes. We think that Provincial Treasury can provide greater guidance to municipalities on the procurement processes. Although municipalities are able to utilize 5% of MIC allocations to require project management skills, some municipalities have still not implemented this. In future, provinces and MISA could be part of the appointment process of panels of technical managers to ensure that there are proper project management skills in municipalities. And then not understanding the depth of assets owed by municipalities in order to develop response mechanisms. The opportunity is to establish a universal infrastructure information management system to ensure that all municipalities are equipped to utilize the tool system for their planning implementation. And then finally, neglect and poor operation and maintenance of strategic municipal infrastructure assets. The opportunity there is to classify certain infrastructure that is strategic and failing or neglected, assigning to the operation of maintenance of this infrastructure to a special purpose entity, vehicle, or implementing agent. And then I think the final two is lack of skilled personnel. The recommendation opportunity here is to build a shared services model where there is a district project office that assumes planning and implementation of capital maintenance projects and that has the ability to operate priority infrastructure. And then finally, poor execution patterns on operations and maintenance is encourage greater private sector participation in municipal infrastructure development to close funding gaps and to leverage on opportunities of budget facility for infrastructure by planning for high magnitude projects with wide benefit that includes repairs and maintenance. And then also to leverage existing municipal infrastructure grants that's to prioritize asset management planning. So up to 5% of MIC can be utilized for that, and implementation of repair and maintenance of infrastructure up to 10%. The next grant we're going to focus on is the Integrated Urban Development Grant. There are currently 8 municipalities that participate in this grant. And on this slide, we provide background on the criteria required for municipalities to participate in this grant. I'm not going to go through the criteria. We can see that expenditure on this grant in percentage terms has been relatively high. 2020-21 was 97.8, and then we also list the expenditure per each of the 8 municipalities, and then in 21-22 it's 98.7. Again, we list for each of the municipalities. The key challenges that we identified in the area is of the MSIG is slow progress. On the IUDG is slow progress on some sites, poor performance of contractors, which led to the termination of some contracts and delays. Contractors facing cash flow problems and therefore unable to pay laborers, leading to delays, community unrest arising from appointment of laborers and community liaison officers, and delays in procurement of services, service providers for new projects. The interventions, poor performing contractors have been issued with notices of slow progress and have been given prescribed days to turn around. Those that are unable to turn the situation will be subjected to termination. Contracts that have not finalized their projects within the stipulated time, taking into account extensions of time granted, have been subjected to penalties as stipulated in contracts. Some of the municipalities have initiated a database system for all emerging subcontractors that will be eligible to participate in subcontracting. Intervention meetings have been held with poor performing service providers. There's close monitoring through regular site visits and monthly contractor consultant meetings. And then contractors are also urged to correct the defects and put measures in place in order to accelerate progress. The next one is the disaster management grant, as indicated by the Deputy Minister. These grants are obviously only expensed when there has been a disaster. If we look at the first 3, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, we do provide the level of expenditure on the different grants in those years. I think we should rather then focus on the last 2 financial years. And then also bearing in mind, if we look at the balances remaining in the last 2 financial years of 202 and 120 million, we will then provide the reasons why some of these funds were not spent, even though there has been some level of disaster. And then maybe to add, which is not here, that in the current financial year, in April, since April with the floods in KZN, or primarily in KZN, that the entire grant has already been spent, which is now not indicated on this slide. So the key challenges identified primarily, as we said, that first of all, there will be underspending in those years where there are no disasters. In other words, the funds will not be expensed if there is no disaster declared. So some of the challenges identified is failure or reluctance by organs of state to invoke emergency procurement arrangements, and are therefore unable to implement responses within 6 months as per the disaster grant frameworks due to potential audit implications. Allocated funds not utilized and being surrendered to the national fiscus, lack of technical capacity to implement intervention measures, governance-related matters in the areas of poor financial management and vacancies, and councils not sitting to pass allocated budgets. Also challenges on following up on the RAND, so monitoring of implemented projects that is exacerbated by lack of oversight and intervention by accounting officers within the funded organs of state. And then failure to report on spending in terms of prescribed procedures. So some of the proposed interventions which have already been implemented or are being implemented is strengthen project management units to monitor and report on all funded projects through grant funding programs, through technical support from MISA, the DDM and rapid response teams, strengthen participation of various stakeholders through activation of joint operation centers and other relevant structures for effective response and recovery, organs of state to report on spending of grants in terms of DORA, and then strengthen capacity within the NDMC, the National Disaster Management Center at DCOG, in terms of resources and systems to enhance grant management process for support of organs of state. There are a number of issues. This was one of the questions that was raised in the letter that we received. A number of issues contributing to municipalities or being in financial distress. The first of all would be unfunded budgets. Then we will look at negative audit outcomes over successive consecutive years. And the negative audit outcomes are then primarily an indicator of governance and related constraints in the municipalities, high unresolved, unauthorized, irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure, defaulting on payments to creditors, government debt owed to municipalities. This would be where government departments, for instance, do not pay their bills, poor revenue collection that's below the treasury norm of 95%, lack of capacity then in budget offices in municipalities, slow infrastructure grant expenditure, which we have elaborated on in some of the earlier slides, bloated organizational structures, resulting in high salary bills, and then challenges with billing, illegal connections, high water and electricity losses due to failing infrastructure. Then when we look at our oversight role on supporting municipalities that are struggling, we're going to briefly go through the list. Obviously, this list is not exhaustive, and this presentation, this slide in its own could be a whole presentation. First of all, lapse in governance is observed as a main driver in the stabilization of administration, financial management, and provision of service delivery. To address these challenges, the Municipal Support and Intervention Plans framework has been developed by COCTA, provinces, SALGA, and National Treasury to provide guidance on the development, implementation, and monitoring of the MSIPs. To address the inability to maximize revenue potential, the department appointed a panel of service providers to undertake a data management project in 8 municipalities to address the challenge of the inaccuracy and completeness of billing and revenue leakages. Furthermore, the department is embarking on the cost of supply study on water provision in 10 municipalities, aimed at assisting municipalities to design tariff settings that could be cost effective. And the department has implemented National Responsible Citizenry campaign, which aimed at encouraging consumers to pay for municipal services. It is expected that municipalities will institutionalize the campaign to encourage the local communities to pay for services. The department also intends rolling out the prototype staff establishment project in municipalities to address challenges in the organograms, which will inter alia address bloated organograms. The department will collaborate with National Treasury, provincial counterparts to support municipalities with the development and implementation of financial recovery plans. And then National Treasury is taking the lead on assisting municipalities to have credible budgets and measures to address unfunded budgets. Some of the successes of the department. I think primarily, if we start with the district development model and the institutionalization thereof, and to date the department has overseen the development of 40 district and 6 Metro 1 plans. The State of Local Government report that was developed and presented to Cabinet highlights municipalities that are dysfunctional, medium to high risk, low risk, or stable. Means that we now have a report that we are able to assess municipalities, and that will then inform the development of municipal support and intervention packages for all municipalities in the country. The DDM implementation framework has been updated to incorporate gender responsive indicators aligned to the National Strategic Program on GBVF. Working with MISA, the department continues to provide support to 44 district municipalities in the country to have access to sustainable services to the strengthening of their capacity to provide reliable infrastructure in a manner that creates jobs for local communities and contributes to economic growth. Due to repeated calls over a long period of time for legislation to provide for oversight to be conducted of municipal councils, a new section 79A has been inserted in the Structures Amendment Act, or through the Structures Amendment Act, to provide for the establishment of municipal public accounts committees. The CWP continues to contribute to providing the poorest in our communities and municipalities across South Africa with an employment safety net. Through the implementation of the indigent policy, 40 municipalities were supported to update the indigent registers. The department completed development of the Intergovernmental Monitoring Support and Intervention Bill for further processing. And then the department developed the Integrated Urban Development Framework to provide a coordinated response to the spatial legacy and enhance integration across planning frameworks and all spheres of government. In our concluding remarks, Honourable Chairperson and members, focusing on our internal underspending and our way forward, the department adopted a zero-based budgeting approach for the next MTF period, which means that as we finalize the new organizational structure of the department, we also asked all business units to budget from scratch so that every cent is accounted for and we know how the money is linked to our outputs in future. This will address underspending and it will ensure that funding is allocated to priority areas. The department will make amendments to the MSIG framework during the October 2022 amendment window to address underspending and to assist the struggling municipalities. The Municipal Support Intervention Plans framework that has been developed by COPTA, provinces, SALGA and National Treasury will then, the department will ensure that these plans are implemented and that the support is provided where necessary. It is recommended then that the Standing Committee on Appropriations note the reasons for underspending, challenges experienced, and measures put in place to remedy the recurrence of the situation. I thank you, Chairperson and honourable members.
Thank you, Mr. Victoria. Yes, I have indications of the oral members who would like to interact with the presentation.
Matafa.
Chair is Honourable Sarupin.
Chair Sheikh Imam.
Matafa, Honourable Sarupin, Honourable Sheikh Imam. Honourable members, I'm listening.
Kaiso.
Honourable Kaiso.
Tangweni.
Honourable Tangweni. Honourable members, are we done? Okay. I will start with Honourable Matafa. Honourable Matafa, please start.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members and Chairperson. Chair, may I request to switch my video off? My network is not stable. I'm afraid that it will disconnect me as time goes.
Perfect.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, let me first greet yourself, the DM and the team, and thank the presentation. It is really assisting and it's responsive to the queries that we had for the department. Chair, I just have a few questions that I think I would still require clarification for the benefit of the committee. And the first one, Chair, is matters emanating from slide 6 regarding the introduction of zero-based budgeting system, which will start from the upcoming MTEF. My question there is to find out if whether is it possible or if the department is planning to roll out a pilot project to ensure an incremental approach to zero budgeting, which we think could prevent a shock in the budgeting and service delivery system. And the second one, Chair, it's also on slide 6, which speaks to the report that a dedicated branch responsible for local government operations and support increased capacity to directly engage provinces and municipalities from around 10 employees to 80 employees. In principle, it is an impressive decision going forward. However, as a committee, we closely observe this to ensure that it is not a mere symbolic move, because we have seen a trend where departments set up units and also draws skills, but with no direct impact on the mandate of the committee. The second question would be, overall, would COGTA say there has been improvement on its performance over the past 5-year period in both expenditure and service delivery performance? Again, Chair, the desired impact, has it been met with this particular performance? Are there tools to measure the performance in line with the targets and the overall impact that we envisage? And I think maybe it's also key, Chair, maybe if to find out if the department can provide us with payment of suppliers within 30 days of receipt of invoices. One bone of contention we always have with many departments, non-payment of suppliers, and everyone, including the president, did indicate that non-payment of suppliers within 30 days results in the collapse of SMMEs, because for them, survival depends on each and every invoice that is submitted. So if we can be finished with the report or an indication as to what is the status of the creditors. Chair, the last one is just on the, in terms of the issue of municipalities who owe ESCOM and government departments, do we have a rent figure of what is the state of affairs in that space? And maybe government departments who owe municipalities. You would have noted, Chair, that ESCOM is struggling to collect from various municipalities, amongst others, the city of Tshwane, where payments are either delayed or there are payments agreements that have been reached. And we know legislation requires that bulk suppliers are paid immediately or prioritized when it comes to payment. And it's common cause that ESCOM, Rainwater in our case in Gauteng, are normally the bulk suppliers. So what has been the trend that we have that information in COGTA's grasp, and what assistance can COGTA render to these municipalities that are struggling to pay these bulk suppliers? Because the non-payment of this will not only affect the municipality, but affect the residents of that particular municipality, including those that their accounts are up to date as far as their usage is concerned. Chair, let me pause there. I thank you for the opportunity, and once again, thanks for to the DM and the team and the presentation. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Matafa, thank you. Honorable Sarupen, please come in.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you for the opportunity. With regards to the presentation, we welcome it, particularly the approach towards zero-based budgeting. And I think that the zero-based budgeting is important because I'd like to ask the department in that aspect if they've looked at the amount of duplication in terms of programs that are designed to support municipalities. I'll give you an example. In Gauteng, to assist municipalities with financial planning and then auditing, there is a program run by the Provincial Treasury and the Provincial Cogta Department. But in addition to that, National Treasury has some programs meant to do the same, and so does National Cogta. And so there's a lot of duplications of the same functions where national and provincial government are trying to aid and assist municipalities. And I'd like to know if they've done an analysis of that and if they've engaged also with Treasury's provincial and national and provincial Cogta departments to see which programs can be folded, which programs can be run by the provinces and not national, etc., so that the budget is in fact streamlined and that they're not tripping over each other. And the previous term, when I was a member of the Gauteng legislature, I found it quite surprising when both provincial treasury, provincial Cogta and national Cogta were sending officials through to places like Rand West City and to Mogale City to assist with budgeting, financial planning, auditing processes and procedures. And these officials are all tripping over each other from the different departments, national and provincial. And I think that that was a sign of big problems in government when we're duplicating programs to try to achieve the same thing. And it's just inefficient spending. Then, Chair, my second question relates to where Honourable Matafa left off, and that is bulk service providers and so on. We know that the biggest amount of Eskom debts, for example, comes out of the Free State. But we also know that in many parts of the Free State, municipalities have now started bypassing the Eskom meters and connecting their supply directly because Eskom is engaging in load reduction. What attempts are they making to ensure that municipalities do not engage in such behavior? And where they are, what attempts are they making to ensure that they don't use this as a way to not even have to pay Eskom? Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I was next on the list, and thank you very much for the presentation. Okay, let me start off. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I see you paid your telecom subscription. You got a better line today, but thank you for that, Chairperson. Zero-based budgeting. Now, I know we want to introduce this. Do we really have the capacity, given the fact it is common knowledge that most of these departments do not have a real plan? They follow the previous year's plan. They come and change the figures and bring it through to us. And that is why you'd find, like the chairperson also alluded to yesterday, that more often than not, when you come to the first quarter, particularly in second quarter, they don't have the capacity to spend. And then they do fiscal dumping in the third and fourth quarter. So that's the first thing, because basically my understanding of zero-based budgeting, you'll identify your needs and based on that you'll budget, which is the other way around at the moment. Now you get money and then plan, paid. Now, we talk about service delivery performance, and let's be honest, it's dismal, no doubt about it. Now, I'm not sure, some of the things perhaps don't fall within the mandate of this department, particularly when it comes to consequence management to some extent and things, because it falls under different departments. Chairperson, I have requested from the Deputy Mayor in Parliament to give us a list, and the list I gave KwaZulu-Natal as an example. And I know that I was told that by around March, they would be able to provide some information. But with what I was looking for, it will take a lot longer than that. I don't mind, I'm quite patient, but I'd like a time frame. And that is, I want to know on all the contracts in KwaZulu-Natal, particularly all the municipalities that have been awarded, who they were awarded to, who the directors were, what was the value of the contracts, and particularly to check whether we had value for money. I know this is a song I sing all the time, Chairperson, like a stuck record. The value for money, meaning each item, whether what we paid for it in order to establish whether that is market related. Because I can tell you, the president rightfully alluded the other day, after me raising this about 50 times or more, that a state capture also exists at local government level. In fact, it's worse at local government level than anywhere else in the country. And that's one of the reasons why we have such poor delivery of services. And that's why we've created 17,500 millionaires and multi-millionaires in this country, in this couple of years. So I'd like to know what is the difficulty in me getting that report, or this committee getting this report more importantly, and when can we expect to get that? Then the other problem is there's a lot of instability taking place in all these municipalities. It's all for power and control, and they're overthrowing mayors and deputy mayors and speakers and things. How is that impacting on ensuring that those that are there are able to provide this, satisfactory services? But more importantly, how do we prevent this? How do we prevent this? Infighting is going to go on for a very, very long time. And I heard from somebody the other day, a particular political party said, go and tell that mayor I need 200,000 rand, and if he doesn't give that, come out of the arrangement. We don't need it. These are some of the things that are, Now, I see we got a lot of vacancies, and there's vacancies in every single department, including Parliament. But we have a very high percentage of unemployment in the country. And I want to reiterate my point that sometimes the qualifications means nothing. That is, we've been looking for qualifications for many years, and you can see the state of our municipalities and other departments and other spheres of government. And then sometimes you're looking for experience, and you got the same. What is really the problem in identifying with such a high unemployment rate, plus we are importing skills into the country, that departments have so much of vacancies all the time, which impacts on the quality of the service that they can actually provide. Now, on the issue of grants, my understanding that you had to force this upon our different spheres of government because of their lack of capacity to implement. So you brought direct grant and indirect grant, and you're more often than not expecting the same people to do the job, but it's just that it's being paid directly and monitored directly, but it's still not yielding positive results. So how are we actually going to deal with them? On the issue of 30 days, Chairperson, I've got another view as well. Could we also have a list of all those municipalities that have paid service providers when those goods were either not delivered or the contracts were not finished? Because we're getting this complaint time and time again. People are being paid in advance and the contracts are not being completed. What would the department say if I suggested that we create a completely new entity, totally responsible for employing anyone in a municipality, particularly in terms of all your officials, and have nothing to do with politicians, political parties, and things? Do you think that can work? Do you think that can ensure that we get better quality of people and that people are not aligned to political parties? And then I want to talk about, lastly, the consequence management. Would you be able to, again, and I know I'm asking for a lot, but it's the only way I believe we can get to the root cause of what is going on and eradicate these problems once and for all. How many of these people in these local governments, particularly, and or provincial governments, that are repeat offenders, whether it's irregular expenditure, fruitless expenditure, not implementing projects on time, or paying people before the contract? And how many of these people have faced the full might of our disciplinary processes that we have put in place? Thank you, Chairperson. I'll stop there for now.
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh Imam. Before I allow Honorable Kaiso to come in, Darren tells me he has an apology to read, and I think it's important that he reads now. Darren, come in.
Yes, Chairperson, I'm just trying to open it.
Okay.
Chairperson, while he's on that, I just thought I should also apologize. I'm moonlighting today on a few committees. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Continue, Darren. Darren? Darren? Okay. Terina was why you okay, all members, there is the letter from the chief director. It's supposed to be addressed to me, but I'm also Nkosi Mandela. DM, can you please take care of these things so that we
Recording
know that
stopped.
we are taken seriously as the hello.
The DG is
Hello,
here. Can you hear me?
No.
Honorable
But
Chairperson.
yes, you see
Can you
the
hear
letter
me?
that I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you, DM, but there is the letter. What DG?
The DG is here, and I think I'm not sure what the letter says, because at the beginning of it, it says the DG will not be available, but the DG is here. And I
Yes.
see that the letter was written by the DG, Mamuhanwa, but I'm not sure whether it was her apology not being able to attend or what. But the DG, if you could answer that, because I don't understand the letter myself too. Thanks.
DG? DG, please come in.
Sorry, good morning, Chairperson.
Yes.
Indeed, Chairperson, I was not going to be available for the meeting due to a duplication in my diary. I was able, in instance, clear it, although I have to still leave the meeting early. So we do apologize for this, Chair. We do take the committee seriously. It's just that I also thought it's a very important committee and I should make every effort to attend. I'll pay the duplication. So I hope that clears that, Chair.
Yeah, please. Then let's withdraw the letter. That's one. Two, I see it's Buthelezi and then it's written Nkosi Mandela. Afterwards, it's just a confusion. Can you check those letters when they must come to Parliament? You can't just send any type of a letter. It's an apology to the DG. The DG is here. So it confuses us. So DM, can you please take care of that?
Okay, well, to Chair.
Yeah.
Chair.
DM, that's coming to you.
Chair.
Yes, Honorable Tlangwini.
Chair, it's quite disappointing. I must say that letter looks at the state as how our municipalities are looking. And then secondly, Chair, can we please have these letters at the beginning of the meeting when we are tabling apologies, so that the letters doesn't get at the middle of a meeting like it also occurred yesterday. Let's have a norm that all apologies must be tabled together when they are tabling members of parliament's apologies, so that we precisely know when the meeting starts who's here and who's not here and who is leaving early, so that we don't get shocked like we are getting shocked now again in the middle of a meeting. And it's very unprofessional to send letters like that to Parliament. It's a disgrace. Thanks, Chair.
Chairperson, I will also take note of the concerns when we'll discuss it in the department. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, DM. May I allow Honorable Kaiso to come in?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Maybe just to express on the letter, yes, we can't accept that kind of a letter which has been presented in that manner. Rather, the explanation did something be accepting that type of a letter which is causing confusion to this meeting. And I want to concur with the chair that that matter, the DM should take care of that type of communication before this committee. Chair, I think let me premise my or preamble my input around the issue of economic reconstruction and recovery plan. So as to have a sense from the COCTA as to what an extent has it actually contributed, or in what way does COCTA contribute or has contributed towards the economic recovery plan, as all the departments are expected to play that critical role in ensuring that the economy of the country is, live and being, assisted to grow. So I want to know what is the capacity of the local government to, to address the question of unemployment, given what is the framework of the economic recovery plan. I'm actually referring to some of the pillars of the economic recovery plan, which one of them is on mass public employment program and infrastructure development, and to greater extent, the macroeconomic interventions, which COCTA would say, here we have played our role in this manner. So that we avoid just to generally say infrastructure there is a smooth sailing, and then there's a problem about contractors not being able to do. What generally picture do we get? To what an extent is the COCTA actually playing in as far as this plan is concerned? Because it's very specific in terms of its framework, or pillars, that each and every department obviously has to say something around those 8 pillars, if I'm not mistaken, so that we know exactly here, as COCTA, we have played our role in as far as economic recovery plan is concerned, so that we don't talk just general around the issues of employment, because we know that a number of for young people in the country remains unemployed, and it takes a huge percentage of the population of the country, including the women. So we must get it straight, that one. However, at the same time, one wants to comment the progress that has been reported in as far as filling of vacancy. Well, we'll still have to count the chickens at the end of the day, whilst we have advertised all the vacant posts. We wish all the departments can say so. Copy from COCTA say, when we ask this question, we get an answer. We have advertised all the vacant funded posts, because I do not still understand this problem of having to get a report every time when we meet the department. We still have underspending because of not filling of vacant funded post. It doesn't make a sense. So I wish that we could have a deadline and write to all these departments and say, next time when you come and present here, we must see almost something that tells us at least there's a progress when you say we have advertised all the vacant posts.
Recording in progress.
The same narration when we met the department. And then let me further then go to ask the department around this. I'm sorry, Chair, I'm just trying to get something right here, because now, yeah. So in actual fact, what I'm referring to is also to get from the department, how is it trying to improve its recruitment process, also aligning its organizational structure, because during the presentation, one could hear that there was a malalignment in as far as organizational structure is concerned, because of the bloated structure that it has resulted in this. And in fact, Chairperson, the Deputy Minister, One other impression that is created every time when we talk about vacancy, unfilled, and the underspending as a result of that, you know, to your own bargaining structure, I mean, to SALGA, for instance, unions have a different impression every time when we have that situation. Even if the salaries or any unspent money, it's not meant for wages and salaries necessarily. But there is an impression which is being created on the same time whilst you go to your bargaining chambers. There's always an escape for you to be, you know, to be attacked, because now people are able to read that there was a money always every year unspent or quarter to quarter. So then the departments get attacked because of this underspending. I'm just saying it does attract such, you know, understanding. Now, on slide 6, you indicated that supply chain processes are being revised. So what do these revisions entail, and how will they practically respond to the challenges? On slide 7, the DG presented that there is an indication that the department has a target of 73% achievement rate for 21-22 financial year. How has this contributed to us addressing the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality? Secondly, how has this addressed the infrastructure backlog that most of our municipalities are confronted with? Now, well, on the issue of, you know, payment of grant, so the MSIG underspend mainly due to lack of appropriate identification of support areas for the program. Can you explain why you are not able to identify these appropriate support areas? Because I think it's very important. So on the last one, Chair, to what an extent has the department dealt with the issue of corruption? Because there's a scourge of corruption. We didn't hear that the department saying here is our battle with the corruption, and here we are in as far as corruption is concerned. And you know, we have seen the emergence of strange, you know, forces in and around KZ. For instance, people crashing and capturing contractors, and you know, demanding this and that and that. So I don't know to what an extent is COCTA bothered around that issue, which might appear to be a delay or you know, people staging criminal activities against a government department in enforcing themselves into contract as such. To what an extent has that, you know, affected COCTA? So I didn't just get that as well. So Chair, let me stop at that moment, and I'll come back if there's any other. Thank you very much.
Honorable Kaiso, thank you so much. Honorable Shangwini, please come in.
Thanks very much, Chair. I think I have been covered by my colleagues through the other majority of the other questions that they have asked. I have one or two that I would like to ask the department. I think throughout the presentation, the presenter made reference to COVID. It could be COVID for the underspending. It could be covert for the, that's why they have an underspending on staff. And I think as this committee, appropriations, we work with realities. We don't want to imagine things. So it's either covert or it's not covert. We don't want either or, it could be. So they must please just tell us, is it covert or is it something else that there is an underspending within the department? We don't want when we walk away from here and then we will be beaten by English, Chair. I think for majority of us, the English are your first language yet. So when you hear a word could have been, it means something different. And to say it is or it was because of COVID. So let's just correct it there. And then on slide 19 regarding the statement that says some municipalities still do not have the required contract management, project management, and technical skills to manage and oversees the implementation of projects. Can we have a list of those municipalities that don't have those required skills? And by when will those municipalities or those necessary skills be acquired within those municipalities to assist with doing the work there in terms of project management? Because we do know that most of the corruption, as Honorable Sheikh Imam have said, do happens at the local sphere. And if we come to this committee and we say some municipalities, we are working with figures and we are working with numbers. So we would like to know which municipalities are those and in which provinces and districts are those municipalities, so that we know exactly when we go and do our oversight work, we know what we are working with. So if we can get the Chair. That was the only one for me, Chair, but further on I was covered by my other colleagues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Dlamini. Let me join the oral members in welcoming the presentation by both the DM, Honorable Babela, and Mr. Pretorius. Let me say, DG, it's very rare that we have got the DG in the platform and an accounting officer responsible for the department not saying anything to us when there's maybe a reason, but just note that I'm noting that, and it's very uncommon. In fact, I think it's the first time when the teachers on the platform, but doesn't talk to the committee. That's one. The vacancy rate of about 10%. It's worrying for a number of reasons. One, it's denying people who are supposed to have employment in government. This country has got a very high rate of unemployment, but I see pedestrian approach, not just from the department, but from many other departments where they come and report vacancy rates in their departments. We've got many young people who are on the streets, qualified and so on, but they remain on the streets. This thing of planning, this country deliberately decided on a multi-year budget, NTF, so that we get indication as to what's going to happen the following year and so on and so forth. So by now, you know exactly what's going, give or take the budget that we are going to be getting next year. So these are things that we expect to, as the colleagues were saying, that we don't wait for the year to start before. So that's one, the direct implications of the people that would have directly employed. Two, I would like to hear a comment. I'm worried about service delivery implications of not filling those vacancies, because it's one of the two. It's either you don't need those posts, which then they should go out, or you need them because they must enhance service delivery, but they are not filled. So I would like to hear from your good selves, what are the implications of the vacancy rate which resulted in underspending. And also, as you can see, it's not just one financial year. This is something that is being taken through over the years. Goods and services, again, it's about the planning in the department related to the vacancy rates. But again, has got a direct implications on the economy, because this money would have gone to the economy to buy this. It would have helped to sustain a certain business. It would have helped to sustain a certain small business. It would have helped to sustain a certain black-owned, women-owned business. But we decide to not procure. What I don't understand, in this committee, we've got all the departments who come and complain about budget cuts. They want more budget and so on. And then a budget is being given. Then we get all types of reasons why is budget not being used. I'll come about the implications and talk about the implications of not using the budget, apart from the denial of people of the services that they need. Underspending on many grants, but let me talk about municipal infrastructure grants. In fact, as a committee, we are less interested in the reasons why underspending. I think more to us is to try and get an indication from the department whether we do have solutions to that, and that the problem have been identified. And because when you hear something like we are working on the plans, very worrying again. It's very important that we plan, but we must plan on time so that by the time we get these funds, I'm talking about the infrastructure grant that we are talking about in particular here. Because what that means, it means we know the state of the roads, our municipalities, we know the state of water and so on. But people of South Africa, through the parliament, they've given money, say, here's the money to government. By the way, this thing of national government, provincial government, local government, doesn't interest our people. Our people just know there's government. So these things between and amongst the different spheres of government, one didn't do this and so on, is not something that we're able to sell to our people. So it's important, DM, that we always say that why don't these three spheres of government, the constitution of this country enjoins us to pursue cooperative governance. Even the name of the department of this is that why don't we lock ourselves in one room and clear these things so that by the time we go out, whether we're provincial or national or local, we've been able, especially to clear certain things around this grant. Sometimes we hear that the municipality didn't fill the forms correctly and so on and so forth. And that's the list of the interest of our people. At the end of the day, they haven't received the service. So why do we, that's because I see bureaucracy at its best when that happens. So the point, and I would like to hear you, to hear the department, we are saying that we although it's good to hear the reasons, but our interest is more about the solutions, is more about saying that Parliament has appropriated this money, and this money is going to be used for what it is in a given time. So if we get reports we say, no, because of this and so on. It doesn't help as far as service delivery is concerned. Relief grants, go back to National Treasury at the end of the year. Again, who's being punished there are the people that are supposed to receive the services. Mr. Pretorius, there's a bar graph there where we talk about expenditure and then talk about savings. Let's call it what it is. The department is not in a business of saving. It's in the business of delivering services. That's what the money was allocated for. So in that bar graph, call it an underspending. It's not savings. It's underspending, so that we appreciate the gravity of that problem. To call it underspending is to try and massage it and to call it savings is to try and massage it and sugarcoat it. It's underspending. That's what it is. And again, I'll make the point that from where we are, please let's get solutions. And I must say, honorable members, that when I was listening to the presentation, I was hearing more about plans to do this, and this administration, it's going for 3 years. So this thing of plans, I don't know when we're going to execute those plans that we're still talking about today. The local government equitable share, again, it's as you are saying, that is one of the biggest contributors. I just want to get from the department what is the most, because it's very clear that the way we're dealing with it's not working. And again, what happens? The population don't receive services. What do you think is the most ideal way of dealing with this thing? We shouldn't be stuck on certain things that we see that they don't work. As people are in the forefront of this, I'm sure you would have said, no. Even if it means we must change the legislation to deal with these things. You are talking to lawmakers, we make laws. So we can't have our laws being impediment to service delivery. So I would like to hear your take on this one. On the MSIG, we talk about improving of record management. Seriously? This is basic management. I think it's management 101. We can't be sitting here and talking about improving of record management. There's something that we're still busy with. That for me, it's given. Again, it just says that I don't see this grant MSIG ending up doing what it's supposed to do. Seriously, improving of record management. I think I would like to hear what must we do? What is Parliament expected to do here? We appropriate money as Parliament so that people who are we employ the best of the best. But when we come and explain why MSIG is not being used, then we say no. We're still dealing with improving of record management. The MIG, water, roads, underspending again. When are we going to start making sure that as government now, we really make this grant available and it works, it delivers the services. Disaster grants, after 6 months, they go back to National Treasury. Again, double jeopardy for our people. Parliament appropriates money because of things which should happen in government. As I keep on stressing this one, that when people talk outside, they don't talk about local government, provincial government, national government, they talk about government. So again, I'm saying, how can we deal with this? Those things which some issues look like they are amongst national departments, whether it's COGTA and Treasury, or COGTA at different layers of government. These are the issues that, from where I'm seated, and as a committee was saying, these are the things that they're not rocket science. People should be able to sit down and say, how do we deal with this? Just to stress a DM, we are lawmakers. We make laws under certain assumptions, but if certain laws don't work, Parliament is always open-minded to say if we need to amend a legislation to improve service delivery. I think that that will be done. No member of Parliament will say no. We don't want to support this, which is good, because it's a concern for everyone. We live in these municipalities, and we see the state that they are in. We see the audit outcomes that we get. And lastly, the DTM came as a way of trying to deal with the silo approach. Where are we with the DTM? And in terms of its success, on a scale of 0 to 10, where would you put the DTM? So much has been said about it as a way of trying to improve service delivery, but I would like to hear your assessment. DM, we'll go back to you. You'll decide who you call when, and you'll only bring back the meeting to me once everybody has once all the questions have been responded to. But before I give to you, let me just check for the last time with the honorable members. Honorable Matafa, any pressing matter that you think you want to raise? Honorable Sheikh Imam? Honorable Kaiso?
No, I'm covered, Chair.
Honorable Kangmini?
I'm sorted, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm also covered, Chair. Matafa, I apologize.
Perfect, Honorable Matafa. Honorable DM, please, and your team, back to you. You bring back the meeting to us once you have exhausted the questions and issues raised by the honorable members.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and also to honorable members on the questions that they've posed, and quite helpful and very relevant. Yes, I'll respond to a few of them, and then I'll indicate the officials that will be coming in, but obviously led by the DG, who also will say a few words, as she will then be directing them in terms of them coming in. So let me start with your comments and then go upwards, pick up on those that I think need some kind of political responses. One, it's the DTM, as you said, it's a new baby in the house under this 6th administration, which is almost 2.5 years towards 3 years old itself. It has recently introduced mechanism to coordinate implementation at 52 geographic spreads, which is the 44 districts and then the 8 metros, to see a new model of government working together, and then to be able to then say in this district and in the following municipalities, who is doing what. And I think it has now reached a sense of understanding, and there are elements of introduction of those mechanisms of the coordination and working together. But the structure is not yet fully operationalized, because from introducing it across the system of governance. It is now part of a reporting mechanism to cabinet. We still have to develop a reporting mechanism to the portfolio committee of COGTA so that they can then understand whether this implementation is not a policy, is an implementation model. But secondly, it has desire to have what we call the district hubs, where in every hub there will be a CEO who will then coordinate all these functions and deliverables by different departments, whether it's a building of a school, it's a building of a clinic, and the municipality's response around the issues of the IDPs to ensure that when the school is built, the IDP will then be in anticipation of it will also be having a budget to take water to that school, electricity to that school, and so forth. So now the next phase, obviously, is the establishment of this particular district hubs with those officials who will then be the coordinating model and a center, because we need then all these departments as they approve budgets nationally in the provinces to then express themselves in a coordinated way so that is predictable by everybody and the communities that are going to be recipients of government services and in those particular 52 districts. But obviously the end geographic space will be a municipality and the communities that are the recipients of this. So that will be the next phase that we'll be focusing on. At the level of the political environment, the president has appointed ministers and deputy ministers as the district champions, and then all of them are now in a district and try to champion with the province, which has also appointed provincial champions from the MECs, and also with the municipality, the district municipality as the coordinating center, and then working with all the MMs in the municipalities and the MECs responding to some of those particular issues that are coming in. As COGTA, we have assigned officials into the 9 provinces, and in every province, we also have officials in every district who are then responding and responsible to be the coordinating administrative aspects of the district functioning as we are waiting for the appointment or the establishment of the district hubs, and later the appointment of the CEOs or managers of the hubs, whatever is the title that is going to be used. So, but otherwise, overall, it's now a sense that is emerging that we cannot continue to work in silos as government. There will still be an element of siloism here and there. You can still feel it and touch it, but overall, there is that cohesiveness that is now beginning to emerge, that the district development model is the way to go. So in rating it, Chair, I'll say it hovers between 2 to 5%, depending on which districts and which metro you are pointing at, and because there's still an unevenness of those. And in some of the provinces have even launched the district development models after the president has launched 3, which is the rural province, OR Tambo in the Eastern Cape, to look at the ruralness or the model setting itself in a rural environment. We also launched the one in Etegwini, taking a metro to then also have that type of a metro presence and the feel, and then also Waterberg in Limpopo, which is a municipality level. So we have a district model implemented, but also Waterberg as a district, and we took a rural municipality in the main. So we therefore have these champions that are now running, and the champions and the premiers have launched in KZN. I think out of the 11 districts, they've the last report was 10 of the districts were launched, if not all of them. And then in Limpopo also is another province that has been launching and ensuring therefore that with those launch, communities are also mobilized, traditional leaders are mobilized, stakeholders are also have what you call the stakeholder forums, because government is a government working with the people, not for itself, but for the people themselves. So therefore, the district is taking a shape of the people-centered development. And therefore, that's why I'm saying district by district, obviously, I'll just rate it between 2 to 5% variety elements. But going forward, I'm hopeful that the district development model will once more be a model, an implementation model that will take the country forward. Chair, on the issue of the underspending on the disaster response grant, definitely I agree with your sentiments and the other honorable members' sentiments. Service delivery is what we ought to be about. But also, this one is a grant that responds to a disaster where people have lost homes, their livelihoods to some extent, services interrupted, roads cut off by disaster, and the immediate response of relief is what then happens. On the relief side of things, I think we did well, and by really saving lives, and then also the property that was connecting villages and people. A lot of work has happened. Some roads have now been opened and then redone, and then I think there's quite a number of progresses around those. However, communities are still in halls. If you go to KZN as a committee, you'll find that there are still people living in halls. Some have even left those halls to go and live with relatives because they say there's no dignity continuously living in a hall with no hope, whether the chances of getting a temporary shelter are going to happen whilst waiting for the permanent solution for their houses that were damaged by disaster. And some of the areas, they are no longer habitable. We can't take people to those areas, so it means looking for new land, for new area that needs to be surveyed by the engineers and so forth, and make sure therefore that they do no longer go through another waves of disasters, so and avoid those particular areas that could then tomorrow become disasters. So it takes time in the identification of the lands and for them to learn. But temporary structure is the second. Once we have relieved people, you need to give them comfort of waiting. And this one we are not doing well, Chair, and some communities are still there. And when we engaged as COGTA, at the coordination level, COGTA is the coordinator. We're doing well, we're convening meetings, ministers come that are responsible for those activities and so forth. The implementation then cut across the departments. And then they use their internal procurement processes towards responding to the disaster. For example, Home Affairs was supposed to have moved on site to help people with those who might have lost IDs, like in fire and in those disasters, and then so that the services are nearer. But then the service has been on and off. A truck will come some days, a truck will not come the other days, and then the land is needed to put infrastructure. The Department of Human Settlement, for example, has already said this is the amount of money available, but the uptake of the money it's stagnant because those people who are supposed to be the recipients, they don't have IDs. And if you don't have an ID, then the human settlement can't touch you. And then also human settlement has gone to municipalities to say, we want land. Some land does not belong to municipalities. They have to negotiate with the landowners. Some land that is available for temporary setup, then the processes of releasing the land takes forever and the money is not spent. So those are the bottlenecks then that you then find that they are in an emergency situation. One can say they are the best models. And I think the country must really begin to look at what disaster format can we then employ. Other countries, they use the army all the way, from relief to recovery towards permanent settlement. And the army will then be commanding and taking over that. But with us, you still allow space for the departments that have the budgets that are inherent within the departments, and whatever additional money that comes as disaster grants to add up to their capacity. So, and as a result, Chair, the next this financial year, 2022-2023, when we report next year this time around, we will be telling you that in the KZN disaster, the Northwest disaster, and the Eastern Cape disaster, spending did not go according to plan. 6 months is ending end of October. Whatever was emergency procurements should happen within the 6 months period. They happened in April, and then when you count within 6 months, if you don't spend the money in the disaster 6 months declared period, then it must go back to the normal procurement periods and times that are there in the system. But also we have a new wave of CFOs who are telling us that they are scared of using the disaster response emergency period because the Auditor General has been flagging them, and they might then receive audit opinions, and therefore, so they are reluctant unless things are satisfied to their norm and without looking at the disaster situation and the people that needs to be receiving these services and so forth. So it's another wave of reluctancy that is there and is beyond us as COGTA now, that because the grants then get received by the province, it gets received by the municipalities, it gets received by our sister departments, and at the point of use and Lorna, you find that there's those particular issues that will then arise. But I take on note and the concerns of the standing committee on appropriation as issues that we just have to improve them in the governance systems. The cabinet is seized with this particular matter. The Lokhodla had received also a report 2 weeks ago, and with an emphasis that we really need to do better as a country, and hoping therefore those as tasks that has been assigned to the ministers that are responsible for, that by end of October, you need to have a better situation and a better report that then begins to say money is flowing towards that particular direction, and we're able then to really help and assist our people there. The MISG, the DG will deal with it, the management 101, as you have referred to it. I will leave that to the DG. And then on the water grants, on all grants that goes to the municipality, whether it be water grants, the electricity grants from the energy, the department, the MIG from COGTA, there needs to be, as we said, why can't we have an engine room as the 3 departments that have these grants going towards municipalities to really begin to impact on service delivery and then so forth. Those attempts were done, then they will start and then not go anywhere, start again. It goes on the emergency and then so forth. But sometimes, as you have said, that government using the DDM model must then begin to center this at the level of the DDM. And I think we'll take that as an assignment and a homework from yourselves, DG, if we can really begin to say the DDM champions must really go to every district and then make sure, therefore, that there's that particular engine room. And we've got the models in KZN that is working, where we will know what is happening in each ward, and then to the province, to the municipality, to the province, and then to the national. And if you could then send Sukuma Sambe type of a project could then begin to work. But also the CEO of MESA is here. They will also tell you about what else are we doing to intervene in the municipalities that lacks capacity due to technical skills not being there, and then how we have engaged with the Treasury National on Section 21 DORA around the element of the money instead of going to Treasury, then we're providing a solution that MESA has the capacity of helping the municipality without capacity to really begin to implement projects that are unfinished, but also projects that are pending, which do not have capacity. And then instead of money going to a performing municipality, denying the money from the local people, then let that money remain by having this particular system. It was only agreed last year, but then the CEO is here to then engage in which areas they've intervened. Is it working? Is it now yielding the results? so that you don't come back and say 2.8 billion rand has not been spent as a result of the unspending. And I think we take those points quite seriously. And then the last few others, then that the rest I'll leave to the officials. But the issue of corruption, I agree with honorable members. We need them to also indicate how do we deal with corruption. But this is a security cluster matter. However, those service providers, not service providers, the mafias in the business and particularly in the construction area, indeed they are there at the level of the municipalities, hijacking projects, demanding 30% of whatever. And we have encouraged the service providers that are confronted by this situation to report the matters. And they have been reporting them, but the security cluster is still trying to then develop a mechanism, which we had also agreed at cabinet level that we need to then have a dedicated police service that really begins to deal with this so that projects do not stall because and they have stalled in many municipalities, I must say, because of these people who are wanting to hijack them, or they will then disrupt and damage the vehicles and the property of the service providers to ensure that nothing happens until my 30% is there. So this now is going to be another additional external matter that is going to stall service delivery from happening, and spending will then be stalling. And but however, the security cluster is alert, and then they are engaging on that particular issue. The issue of the vacancies, I will leave to the DG and the team to respond to. But also, as you said, that sometimes when we don't spend money, the unions will then raise it and say money goes back to treasury, even though the money was not for wages, it was for service delivery. But the perceptions are there. I do agree with Honorable Kaiso around that particular issue, but then I'll leave the rest of those things alone. From Honorable Kaiso also, there was an issue, Chair, if I can just quickly touch on it, on the response to economic recovery plans. The minister did write a circular even during COVID to say municipalities must be alive to ensure that for that the recovery of economy, it's the responsibility of the municipality too. Companies that want to leave municipalities to go to other better performing municipalities also ought to be engaged so that industry remains where it has invested, because this is jobs for the local people. You remember the Clover story in this water in the Northwest. When it happened, then that then was a wake-up element. We are saying to the municipality is an engine room for economic growth, because these companies there's nothing called national space or provincial space. They are all existing at the municipality level. If roads are bad, electricity supply is always interrupted, water is interrupted, like in Maluda Pofu. Nestle wants to go out of that particular area. And imagine the unemployment in Maluda Pofu that will arise as a result of that. So some of them have been coming to us. We've been helping them to respond to the issues that they are challenged with as a result of the municipalities not performing their functions. And it has worked. And then some of the companies have decided to stay, like in the Northwest, where I had gone to Mahikeng, the Supreme Chicken wanted to go. And it supplies chickens to all your KFCs and your chicken outlets in South Africa. And they wanted to go out to Gauteng in Midrand, because they say services are better there than they will be in Mahikeng. And then about 4,000 jobs were going to be lost in Mahikeng. Just imagine local jobs then going, because municipalities are not performing their jobs. So we continuously interview on those particular issues. The issue of the 30 days list, I think the DG will respond to it. And then also the issue of the instability in the municipalities, reports, and then I think we do have it, but at the point of need, they can come back with it. Also, these vacancies, I think I agree with you that the age of the vacancy must also be attached. How long has been the vacancy been there? Because as you go through life, there's resignations, there's retirement, there's death. However, the age must then be determined. We can't have a vacancy for 5 years, and we keep coming to the committees and then say because of this and that. And then Honorable Sheikh, thanks very much for your comments. And let me then also say some of the issues you're asking about KZN will follow up. But as we said, you are a patient person. Remain patient because the volume of information you need here is quite voluminous. And obviously, how many contracts were issued by each municipality, to which directors, companies, and the directors' names, and was it their value for money? They need to go and reconcile that. And then the records to verify whether the project was successful, and if so, what is the impact, and then what stage did it go, and then so forth. It is indeed voluminous, but it can't be forever. So I will then have to engage with the municipality that we did raise this in this meeting, and then with the province, COGTA, in KZN, so that they could then begin to follow up on the matters. Honorable Suripan, thank you very much for your comments too. The bulk services and the ESCOM illegal connections and so forth, we usually work with energy department around those issues and the public enterprises and the municipalities that might be facing these illegal connections. And if such a report is needed, then we can. But however, you are linking it to what Matafa, Honorable Matafa was saying around if we can get a report of municipalities owing ESCOM and water boards. We do have that report. The DG might then have to bring it at some point, but you can comment on it now. And then the 30 days companies that have been paid or not paid by the Department of COGTA. I think the DG, we did provide it to COGTA, but it might be updated because it was last year when it was presented to COGTA portfolio, and therefore you could then provide it at the point, but the DG will also be able to comment on it. So, Chair, let me stop there and then allow the DG then to lead and assign the team before we bring the meeting to ourselves. DG Avery Williamson.
Thank you so much, Deputy Minister, and I want to greet the Honourable Chairperson and the members of the committee once again. And perhaps just to then state up front that we do apologize. I know that initially I was not going to be attending the meeting, but of course the circumstances then changed, and as such I've joined. Perhaps just to also thank the Honourable Chair and members.
Yes, I just want to make a follow-up on my...
Honourable Kaiso, Honourable Kaiso, Honourable Kaiso, Honourable Kaiso, Kaiso. Sorry, TG. Honourable
Yes,
Kaiso,
Chair.
can you hear me? Can you
Yes,
hear me?
Yes,
Please just hold on to a question. Let's allow the TG to, then you'll come afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. So I was just saying thank you to the Chair and the members for affording us the opportunity to come and brief the committee on the underspending over the last 5 years, and also the implications that it has had on service delivery. And of course, we also indeed note all the questions and comments, and also the suggestions that have indeed also been made by the committee, and we will most certainly take all of these forward. I am also joined by my team, who I will also then be allocating some responses that are more detailed and from a technical perspective. But in essence, I would indeed also start. And of course, just with regards to the zero-based budgeting approach, as highlighted to us by the Honourable Matafa, yes, I do agree that it's a process where we would need to upfront already rather look at exactly what it is that the department needs to undertake, and then allocate funds accordingly. I must say that this is also a new approach for us. We have started to look at it during this particular financial year, and we will be extending it into the next year and really firming it up, because we do believe that the funds that we have needs to be aligned to our new strategic outlook and also to our new organizational design and approach, which must focus on service delivery. Just with regards to the actual implementation as well of our local government operations branch, here we are also taking this role very seriously. We believe that it's the arm that the department really needs for us to have a stronger impact in terms of the work that we are undertaking. We also are looking at this to ensure that we have one point of entry through to the province and then ultimately to a municipality, so that we have also accountability within the department. We have drafted quite serious work plans against some of the targets as well that we need to make certain that we meet. And it's for this reason that we really would also look for the support of both province and the general local sphere in ensuring that we are then able to directly impact our mandate. On the issue of the payment of suppliers within the 30-day period, I must say that in joining the department, we were not really doing well in this area, but we have since caught up. We are now close to 100% in terms of payment of suppliers within 30 days. Some of our months in the last financial year have been at 100% and others not. But on average, we are way over the 95% mark, and we will certainly provide this information. I will then also just make comments specifically on the query of Ahmed Sheikh, the one that just talks to all contractors who've been awarded and whether they are actually also then providing fair value in terms of the services that they are rendering. I wanted to just mention here that perhaps we can engage National Treasury and see if they can also assist in providing us with information from their database in relation here too. So I will certainly raise that and see how it is that we can bring the list back to the honourable member. I wanted to also mention that we are in the process of finalizing a memorandum of understanding between ourselves and the National Treasury. And we are hoping that through this approach, we will be able to then eliminate some of the duplications that may be arising in our work as raised by the Honourable Sarupeng. We will also certainly be looking at grant administration generally. We have already set up a team with Treasury taking the lead on reviewing our grant structure, but also just looking at exactly how it is that we can improve our whole grant management system, because we fully understand that with funding being returned to the fiscus doesn't necessarily then fulfill the function of ensuring that our citizens are not negatively impacted. So that is something else that we will also include in our MOU and also just general reporting. The other comment that I also thought I should make is the one that actually specifically talks to the vacancies and the vacancy rate. The 10.3% that we've highlighted within the presentation, I do, whilst I do agree with the fact that the unemployment rate is high and that we should really drive our filling of our positions, I wanted to just perhaps mention that within departments generally, the Department of Public Service Administration does have a benchmark that guides us in terms of the vacancy rates, because there will never be a time where the institution will not have vacancies. But we are guided by the fact that your rate should not be more than 10%. and the lower it is, obviously the better. But we will certainly look at driving that at least lower than it is at the moment. But what I was wanting to just say is that if you look at the standard and the benchmark, we are more or less within that. Just also with regards to the actual comments about from the Honorable Buthelezi, just with regards to the savings versus the underspending and the language that we are using here, we will most certainly also rectify that. When we also present, we will make certain that our emphasis is on the solutions rather than also just expressing the fact that we have plans. I would then, Chairperson, with your permission, I wanted to start out by first calling upon our CEO, Mr. Vimba, who will then just respond to some of the items raised around projects and those that are not completed. But I wanted to just preface that by saying that the issue as it would relate to, say, Schedule 6B, we are administratively in the process of finalizing the appointment of MISA as our implementing agent. So I thought I would just say that before Mr. Vimba comes in on some of the responses that do relate to the area of MISA. And once Mr. Vimba has responded, I will then ask Peter to respond and thereafter Dr. Blakey. Thank you so much. So Mr. Vimba, over to you.
Thank you very much, DG. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, DM and my colleagues. I will answer some of the questions relating to service delivery in particular. There is a question raised by Honorable Kaiso.
Sorry. There's a feedback. I don't know where it's coming from. Can we please make sure that we mute, all of us mute, to allow the CEO to respond to the questions? Thank you, CEO. Please come in. Mr. Vimba.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I was just checking if the feedback is not coming from where I am as well. And thank you very much. The question that I will start with, I think it's a very important question raised by Honorable Kaiso about the macroeconomic impact of our interventions and the extent to which COGTA has played a role in the implementation of economic recovery and reconstruction plan. Chairperson, yes, if you recall, the economic reconstruction and recovery plan in the main was anchored on infrastructure delivery. And COGTA played a very important role through, of course, the deployment of the infrastructure grants. I think this year alone, there is about 17 billion rand of infrastructure MIT that has been transferred or has been allocated to local government. That on its own is playing a very important role in terms of economic recovery and reconstruction. And over and above that, we then said, looking into the impact of COVID, that a certain percentage of MIG, I think 20% of MIG, must be dedicated to labor-intensive construction methods of building. And that is being implemented, and MISA is currently supporting municipalities to mainstream labor-intensive methods of construction as part and parcel of a response to COVID-19. And this is part of the Reconstruction and Economic Development Program of government. But over and above the fact that we have said 20% is set aside for LIC, We have also, through the Presidential Employment Stimulus Package, been working very closely with municipalities and National Treasury to support the Presidential Program. And MISA was allocated 284 million to assist with innovative waste management solutions, which will have two legs. One, which is SMME development, and the other one is mass employment creation. So we are currently running that program. 25 municipalities already have benefited, and over 7,000 unemployed people, young people were benefited from the program, and over 30 SMMEs were also assisted. We can provide the detail if it's required, chairperson. And also through the labor intensive construction program, a number of municipalities are being supported, and a number of jobs were created. We can provide statistics with regard to that program. And just coming to the contributions made by MISA in terms of supporting municipality with skills, chairperson, firstly, I must indicate that we will provide a list of all municipalities that are lacking in terms of the skills around project and contract management. We do have that list. We are going to provide it to the committee. But over and above that, MISA, we have deployed our own professionally registered engineers, as well as town and regional planners to a number of municipalities where MISA is supporting to beef up capacity and ensure performance in terms of MIG. And if you know, chairperson, the performance of MIG over years, you will see that on average, MIG has been spending above 90%. And in most cases, this happens amid a number of instabilities that happens, in between, because at some point when there is a change of leadership, like when the local government elections in 2021, a number of skills, contracts of skilled people's contracts came to an end because they are linked to the term of the council, and that disrupts, municipalities in terms of their performance and ensuring that skilled personnel are retained in municipalities. But amid all that, the expenditure has been around, on average, 90%. And as well as chairperson, there was a question around the COVID, how did the COVID impact, on expending? It did impact chairperson greatly. You will see if you check the payment of MIG over the past 5 years and you zoom into 2020, you will see a difference, which is directly linked to the impact of COVID. You will recall that at some point, construction sector was shut down during the shutdown period, and it was only reopened around June. And at the time, it had an impact in terms of the performance of service providers on the ground in 2020, and also in terms of the implementation of projects. But post 2020, you will see that there's been a huge improvement in terms of spending of MIT. And also through MISA, we, over and above just deploying engineers and town and regional planners, we have got programs that are aimed at assisting municipalities to build their own internal capacity. We have got a skills development program where we train municipal officials on projects and contract management. We have got a team already through our partnership with SAISA, PDP, where we are on the ground working with a number of municipalities on a range of areas that are impacting on the delivery of services, like project management, contract management, procurement management, and so forth. So those programs, as we're talking, are currently running, and the number of municipalities, over 500 municipal officials already benefited in the previous financial year. And over and above that, we have got a program that we call Apprenticeship Program, where we are training a number of artisans, water process controllers, and we're linking all these to municipalities who are then become the beneficiaries, and where we place all these skills, plus, of course, working with TVET colleges. So there are a number of municipal officials, of municipalities that are benefiting from that apprenticeship program. And over and above that, we've got a number of unskilled laborers in municipalities, but we have got experience. We have been running these plants without certification. So we've introduced a program called the Cognition of Prior Learning Program, where we are making sure that these laborers who had no certificates, we now train them so that they get certificates and they can also be qualified, as artisans going forward. We've got a number of municipalities and municipal officials that are benefiting from that program. This is part and parcel of building capacity and skills in municipalities. And also we have a young graduate program where we recruit young graduates who have qualified, who have degrees in engineering and also in other built environment profession. And we then recruit these young graduates. We then get mentors through our experienced engineers and other mentorship programs that we have to assist these young graduates towards professional registration, and we place them in municipalities. So what we then do, our plan is for municipalities as they qualify, as these young graduates qualify as engineers, for municipalities to absorb them. So we're creating a skills pipeline in a way for municipalities, but also not only for municipalities, for MESA as well. So that program is one of our flagship programs, and we're quite excited about it. Now, what we have done, because we realized that many municipalities are struggling in terms of ensuring that they provide meaningful work for these young graduates. Now, we've also partnered with private sector where some of the contractors who are doing work in municipalities will then assign these young graduates so that they get experience in terms of the actual design, which many municipalities will not be able to provide to these young graduates. And also as MESA, we've decided to also build our own internal capacity to be able to design for certain type of municipal infrastructure. And we've procured the software packages for design, and we're putting in place a design unit within MESA, and we are currently supporting Cambo, piloting this program. So the aim is to make sure that our young graduates, instead of us linking them up with private sector, they work within MESA to get experience for designing, but also on a long term to ensure that MESA is able to provide this service in terms of designing for municipalities, instead of municipalities having to rely on private sector consultants. So this is part of the solutions that we are coming up with, Chairperson. And then coming, Chairperson, to, I think there was another question. What is the other one? And I'm just looking at, there was a question. Check. Yeah, on the mix 6B, I think DG has responded already there. The mix 6B now is the framework is there. It has been approved. The identification of municipalities to benefit from the program, it has been done. And the plan is to have this implemented in the 2023-2024 financial year. So from the planning point of view, we are done. But also in terms of our own contribution, if you look into the work that we've done as interventions now, you go to Makanda today, and it is part and parcel of economic recovery and reconstruction. We're able to go to Makanda and assist the municipality with facelifting of the town in terms of the roads. You go to Makanda now, towards a city of potholes. We have since dealt with the issue of potholes in town. The town is quite attractive now. Investments are coming back to Makhanda. And we've also assisted the 118 jobs created through the work that we're implementing in Makhanda. And also 8,000 jobs opportunities were created thus far on the labor intensive construction program. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Okay, with your permission, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Vimba. If I could then hand over to Mr. Pretorius, if there's any points he would like to take us through on the questions that were raised.
Thank you, DG. I'm going to focus on a few of the questions. The first one relates to a question that was asked by a number of the honourable members in relation to the impact on service delivery, in relation to our procurement and vacancies. And I think there's no denying that that has an impact on our ability to deliver on our mandate, first of all, and then also on the broader impact as highlighted by the chair. And that's why we adopted a different approach and why we had this comprehensive strategic review to make sure that what we do is aligned to our legislative mandate and that we allocate resources correctly, both human resources and then funding for procurement of goods and services and capital assets, that we allocate this correctly to make sure that we maximize what we achieve with the available funds we have. And I think also just on the zero-based budgeting approach, I think it's important in relation to the question asked by Honourable Sarapin is that obviously we did that as an internal process in the department. It is not easy to do this, especially if we are not used to following this approach. But it is very important that every year we look at what the priorities are that we must allocate funding to, and that we don't simply follow a linear budgeting approach, and that we do this process every year to make sure that the funding is allocated to whatever changing priorities there has been in the environment that we operate in. On the payment of suppliers, I can confirm that this financial year, so far, we've paid all our suppliers within 30 days, with one exception. One supplier was paid after 35 days, and we are taking disciplinary action where the officials delayed the payment of the suppliers. But apart from this one exception, all our suppliers have been paid within 30 days. Then on the recruitment process, I think it was also important to note that our recruitment process previously took around 12 months to fill a post. And we found that there are many areas where we can improve so that we do better planning. And that also we run some of the processes in parallel. So we put in place recruitment service standards, which was approved by EXCO, which then determines how long each of the role players in the process have to take to ensure that we fill our posts within a period of 3 to 4 months and not within 12 months. And I think similarly in supply chain management, we only had one bid specification committee, one bid evaluation committee. So we expanded the number of committees, and we also made sure that the progress on the procurement process is reported monthly at EXCO meetings, and that we unblock where we see that committees are not meeting or where the procurement processes are not receiving priority. Then obviously internally in supply chain management, we introduced specific checklists and process maps to make sure that the process flows quickly, and that also where possible we do processes in parallel to speed up the process, so that we can, again, when it comes to tenders, instead of taking 8 or 9 months, that we can finalize those processes in 3 months. Then on the comment by Honourable Mplangweni about the COVID, yes, of course, COVID had an impact in 2020-21, where some of the underspending could be attributed to the fact that staff had to work from home, especially in the first few months. But for the rest of the period, it's not COVID related. It's primarily related to our internal inefficiencies that we have highlighted in the presentation. And then also the way we've addressed those inefficiencies in future will then not have an impact and should allow us to spend our entire budget. So it's most definitely not entirely related to COVID. This only had an impact in one half of one financial year of the 5 years under review. I think, DG, those were all the questions that has not been answered related to my area of responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pretorius. And once again, Chair, with your permission, I wanted to give an opportunity through to Dr. Plaatje, if that's okay, Chair.
Okay, I'm not sure as whether I should continue. All right. Chairperson, members of the Standing Committee on Appropriations. Chair, I can continue.
Please proceed.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Platt.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to elaborate a little bit on the Municipal Systems Improvement Grant. In addition to funding the DDM approach, as elaborated on by the Deputy Minister, the MSIG addresses several support areas. These areas of technical support to municipalities are driven by the grant purpose, which is to stabilize governance and institutional systems in line with the relevant local government legislation. On the issue of data management, it should be noted that municipalities are largely dependent on consumer data for billing and eventually raising funds for operational purposes. The lack of adequate data management impacts negatively on the accuracy and completeness of billing. Further, municipalities have internal control deficiencies, which are non-adherence to records management policy and related legislation, and that impacts on proper records management. Poor records management leads to undesirable audit outcomes, including disclaimers, and the lack of accountability and business continuity. Further, the Auditor General recently indicated that municipalities did not have adequate documentation to support the revenue billed, and not all of the revenue that should have been billed to residents for services rendered has been billed, and poor debt collection practices are common. To address the issue of unbilled revenue, the department is undertaking a data management project in municipalities utilizing the Municipal Systems Improvement Grant. The department will assess their data management practices guided by municipal revenue-related policies and local government legislation to identify key anomalies that require correction, develop implementation plans, and assist municipalities with the implementation. And to address the issue of records management, the department is also undertaking a records management project in 30 municipalities. We will assess the state of records management in each of these municipalities to develop implementation plans and assist the municipalities in the implementation, considering the key pillars of records management and guided by the various legislation that govern national and provincial records management, including best practice guides. At the end of this technical assistance, the department will provide a records management assessment report or a diagnostic report and a risk analysis report for each of the targeted municipalities' business processes, and develop municipal specific projects outlining the desired outcomes and timelines. The next one is on the cost of supply studies on the water provision. The objective thereof is to apportion all costs. The objective of the cost of supply studies, honorable members, is to apportion all costs required to service customers among each customer class in a fair and equitable manner, and is one of the most important considerations in establishing and designing water tariffs that are implemented to provide the service required by customers and recover costs incurred by the authorized municipalities. The work on the cost of supply studies on water provision will assist municipalities to, in the end, determine the appropriate tariffs or price for the water service provided by the supported municipalities. And on the institutional support front, the department in the past developed prototype, which are minimum staffing requirements, staff establishments, according to different functions and powers of different categories of municipalities. The next phase that we are funding now and we are implementing is for the department to pilot and validate the prototype staff establishment of municipalities according to different powers and functions of different categories of municipalities, and undertake a national rollout thereafter of the prototype staff establishment in municipalities. In conclusion, it's envisaged that all of these projects will be rolled out to other municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blakey. Chair, there's one question that will need to be responded to. It does relate to the disaster management grant. So I thought if it's okay with Chair, that I could ask Ms. Anay Prevere to please respond to that. And with a specific emphasis or focus on the underspending and the rationale or the reasons as to how that happens and what the department's doing about it. Thanks.
Good morning, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable Members. Thank you very much. Yes, I think Deputy Minister Bapela has already responded to that to some extent, but I can just indicate that the disaster grants are meant for emergency response to address the immediate needs of affected communities, and therefore implementation should take place within 6 months. Usually spending is quite good, and we have reported on the one area that it has gone back to the national fiscus. And as Honourable Buthelezi indicated, accounting officers of grant recipient organs of state are accountable for those spending. And the NDMC provides support through on-site visits to the projects to ensure that the projects are being implemented, and we also ensure that we receive the reports from the organs of state to make sure that we can monitor the spending and make sure that the projects are implemented timeously. So the grant framework also provides for a possible extension of the 6 months of implementation if the circumstances warrant that extension. And then the process of rollover funds must also be applied for, and for which Treasury provides approval, and it must be in accordance with their processes as well. Thank you.
Honourable Chairperson, I believe that we have covered all questions that have indeed been raised. And thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you, DG. Honourable Kaiso, there's a follow-up you wanted to make.
No, Chair, it was misplaced, a follow-up question. There was no question, actually.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me take this opportunity to thank you all. Thank you, the Deputy Minister, Honourable Bapela, very much for taking time and engage with SCOA. There's no important. It's very important to note the centrality and the importance of this department in as far as service delivery is concerned. Hence, it was important for us to cover the areas that we have covered, and also thank the DG, Ms. Williamson, Dr. Blakey, Ms. Brewer, and all others on the platform for engaging with the committee. Mr. Vimba, Mr. Pretorius, thank you very much for the inputs that we have made and responding to the questions raised by the committee. Just to stress the obvious, when we appropriate the budget as Parliament, and when they're done through the committee, we want to ensure that those given the responsibility of spending the money, as you know, that there's so much contestation for that budget. All departments want more budget. We want to make sure that the money is spent as planned, and we get the desired outcomes. We should measure about the impact that we make to the lives of South Africans. So this committee, by and large, were responsible for the processing and recommending to Parliament of DORA and the appropriation bill. So if you like, they deal with the budget here. And it is the responsibility of us again to follow the money. We always say that whoever gets money from government, it's our client. So time and again, we ask different departments, agencies, SOEs to appear before us within the constraints of time that we are having. Let me quickly talk about underspending and its impact. Well, if we don't spend, the obvious one is that we deny the people the services that they're entitled to, and Parliament has appropriated money for. So it's an obvious one. But as Parliament, we have identified budgets to do a number of things. First and foremost, to try and deal with the lackluster performance of the economy. So to jumpstart the economy through government spending, it's one of the things that we have identified. You remember in your GDP equation, you have got that G there, government, which the direct proportionality between the G and GDP. And again, on consumption, again, because there's money that you appropriate, which must be consumed. It's very important. But also, there's a question of investments, right? On infrastructure. So it's very important that the money is being used for those things, so that we deal with the question of economic performance. But again, it is an opportunity for government to deal with the question of economic transformation. We have identified the budget as one instrument that we have as government to try and deal with the legacy of economic exclusion of our people. And for us to get that, we depend on the departments and how departments spend. Again, we've got very high levels of unemployment. Hence the question raised by the honorable members of the vacancy rate, which is a direct one. We hear DG the 10%, which is according to your norms, public service norms, it's acceptable. To us, it's not acceptable because we've appropriated money for people to be employed, so that they are there first and foremost, and then they are able to deliver that service. Perhaps, honorable members, we should take that one up with with public service commission and DPSA. This 10% variance, when people are saying that they are allowed, we don't allow it, because the money that we appropriate, we want that money to be used for what it's intended for. Okay, let me also deal with this one. As a country, we run a deficit, which means that the money that we get as revenue through SARS and our expenditure, we've got more expenditure than what we receive. So what do we do to try and deal with this delta, the gap? We go to the market and borrow money so that money is available to the departments and to our agencies. We borrowed about 8%. So when that money is kept in the bank, the opportunity costs are just too high. But the direct cost is that we borrowed 8%, and the money, I think, in the bank gets about 3%. So we're losing 5% already to the bank. And that explodes the debt and the debt repayment cost. As you know, that we're spending about 300 billion rand per annum in debt repayment. So the implications of not spending money for us who are here, having a macro outlook of all the departments and what we're trying to do as a government are huge. So it's very important that when these things happen, DM, DG, and the whole staff, let's always appreciate the implications of this. The multiplier effects of spending in the economy are just huge. So that's why we take a dim view of spending, and we definitely would like to see improvements on these things. Would like to see a department which is more responsive, which is more agile, in ensuring that all these things happen. As I'm saying, that this department is very central, especially because it deals with local government. And DM serious on this one, on the things that way of resolving them, because we can't be going to the electorate and telling them that we could do 1, 2, 3 because department A didn't do C, D, or province A.
Chairperson, was wrong. Honorable Sheikh congratulated you so well. And now the network is disappointing you.
Yes, honorable members, I'll take over a bit. Chairperson has just disappeared due to technicalities, but he was actually at the close of the meeting, and we want to thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister and your team, for having honored the invitation to appear before this committee. We hopefully all what we have discussed will then find its roots towards the implementation of whatever that we have decided to plan and take care of all those areas, critical areas that the committee has raised with you. And we once more want to thank you for being with us before this committee and your team. And thank you very much, honorable members, and then you are released.
Thank you very much, and bye.
Thanks, sure. Darren, what is the next item on the agenda? I think it should be minutes.
It's the minutes. It's the minutes of the 2nd of September. 2nd and the 7th of September.
Yes. Honorable members, they are the minutes and circulated to you on the minutes of the 2nd September. Can I get the mover and the seconder of the minutes? The first set. Can I get a mover?
Maria will move.
Honorable Maria moves the minutes of the 2nd of September. Can I get a seconder?
Buteli is the second.
Honorable Buteli is the second, the minutes of the 2nd of September. Let's go to the minutes of the 7th of September. Can I get any mover for the minutes of the 7th of September?
Mlenzana moves.
Honorable Mlenzana moves for the 2nd of the 7th of September. Can I get the second?
Maria will second.
Honorable Maria seconds the minutes of the 7th of September. And thank you very much for concluding the minutes part of the agenda. Darren, are there any announcements that you want to make?
Yes, I received an apology on behalf of Mr. Kwankwa after the meeting commenced. And then the next meeting will be on Friday. It's going to be with PBO and small business development. Thank you.
Okay.
Chairperson,
Yes, Honorable Maria.
just in advance, apology for Friday. On Friday, we have the Parmet trustees meeting, and I'm serving as a trustee there, and that's the whole morning until 2 o'clock on Friday. So in advance, I want to make my apology to the committee. Thank you, sir.
Okay, noted, Honorable Maria, in advance. Honorable members, this brings us. Oh, you want to come in? Okay, sure.
Honorable Marais.
Yes, sir.
We pay too much money in permit. Can you please deal with that, please, as a belief man? Hey.
So I will have a conversation with you on this side. Thank you.
So, okay, no, I'm sure Honorable Maria has taken note of that. Yeah. Honorable members, this brings us to the end of our meeting today, and thank you very much for your attendance. And let's meet then on the next round of our brief meetings as outlined by the Secretary. And the meeting is closed. Thank you very much, honorable members.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.